Hey, I'm Jacob, the creator of the AI Vaults newsletter. Every week I hand the mic over to Google's Notebook LM to let AI break down the latest issue. So here's this week's news presented by Alex and Morgan.
For decades, we've thought of software as just completely weightless. You write the code, you upload it to the cloud, and it just scales infinitely.
Yeah, it's basically invisible, frictionless.
Exactly. And for a long time, it felt like magic. But welcome to the deep dive, because today we are looking at how that illusion of weightless software is officially over.
It really is. We're hitting a massive wall.
We totally are. We're pulling from a pretty wild stack of new intelligence today. We've got Anthropic's internal economic data, breaking corporate espionage reports from TechCrunch, some deep financial analysis from CNBC, and our mission is really to figure out why the AI industry's blank checks are suddenly bouncing.
Right, because the new battlefield isn't just code anymore. It's made of physical silicon.
Yeah, silicon, geopolitical bodyguards, the whole 9 yards. It's a massive tectonic shift toward infrastructure, efficiency, and real-world execution.
It's an undeniable shift. I mean, we are moving out of the purely digital realm and just slamming face first into the brutal realities of economics and physical hardware.
Right. Because for the past 2 years, it's just been this wild, spend whatever it takes arms race. But to understand why this massive corporate pivot is happening, we actually need to start by looking at you, the listener.
Yeah, how everyday people are actually using these tools.
Exactly. We need to look at how millions of people are using AI every single day and what that usage is actually doing to these companies' bank accounts. Because according to CNBC, the corporate world is slamming into a terrifying pricing wall.
It's the end of the token maxing era, essentially.
Yes, token maxing, which I hear that word and I immediately think of some terrible crypto scam. So let's break down what a token actually is in this context.
Sure. So think of a token as a tiny computational syllable. When you ask an AI a question, it breaks your prompt into these tiny chunks of words, and the provider charges fractions of a cent to process every single one.
Fractions of a cent sounds cheap until you scale it, right?
Exactly. But token maxing was this gold rush strategy where companies actively incentivized their developers to build applications that used as much AI as possible.
Like just generate as many tokens as you can.
Embed AI into every single feature and don't worry about the cost because the whole goal is just capturing market share.
But those fractions of a cent really add up when you have millions of users. I mean, the CNBC report highlights Uber as a prime example of this.
Oh yeah, the Uber situation is wild.
They blew through their entire annual AI budget in just 4 months. 4 months.
Which is just staggering.
And now they're imposing these strict $1,500 per month tiers on their internal AI tools just to stop the bleeding. And it's not just the giants feeling the squeeze either.
Right, startups are getting hammered too.
Yeah, Flo Crivello, the CEO of an AI startup called Lindy, he was looking at his cloud bills and basically realized his business model was fundamentally unsustainable. So he switched 100% of his company's traffic completely off of Anthropic's premium Claude model.
Right, he moved everything over to DeepSeek, which is a massive shift, by the way.
Yeah, DeepSeek is that cheaper Chinese open weight model. Let's ground that term for a second. Open weight. That basically means the underlying architecture, like the actual neural connections of the AI, are made available for developers to run on their own, right?
Precisely. Instead of it being locked in a black box where you have to pay a middleman like Anthropic a huge premium just to access their servers, you can host an open weight model yourself.
Or use a cheaper provider.
Exactly, which cuts costs drastically.
Yeah.
Crivello actually said the switch was a matter of basic survival, and it saved his company millions of dollars almost instantly.
Which creates this incredible tension in the market. On one hand, you have CEOs just panicking over the sheer cost of running these frontier models. But on the other hand, everyday human dependence on this technology is skyrocketing.
It's becoming totally embedded in daily life.
It really is. Like if you've ever laid in bed at 5 in the morning asking an AI why you can't sleep, you're actually part of a massive global data trend that Anthropic just uncovered in their newest economic index report.
I love this report. They started sampling usage data down to the hourly level, and it perfectly mirrors the rhythms of human life.
It's so fascinating because it totally shatters the idea that AI is just a tool for programmers writing code in a basement.
Right. The data shows that around 5 a.m., those queries for sleep advice peak.
I feel so seen by that, honestly.
We've all been there. And then by 7 a.m., The prompts completely shift as people start asking for summaries of the morning news.
And then by 6 p.m., the biggest spike across the whole network is people asking for recipes and meal planning. It tracks the calendar, too, not just the clock.
Oh, the tax deadline data was amazing.
Yeah, just before the April 15th U.S. tax filing deadline, tax-related queries spike by 8 times the normal volume.
And the weekend shifts are where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah, because during the week you see all the expected stuff, business correspondence, slide decks, all that. But on the weekend, usage shifts heavily to personal topics.
Emotional support, writing fan fiction, brainstorming a new business idea.
Although the data does show that higher wage workers, like marketing managers, are still doing heavy, compute-intensive work on the weekends.
Well, the AI never clocks out, so they feel like they can't either. But to me, the most striking finding in that Anthropic survey data is something they call the delegation paradox.
Oh, this is so counterintuitive. So over 35% of the people surveyed expect AI to do most of their work in the next 12 months.
Most of their work. You'd think that realization would cause mass panic in the workforce.
Right. But the survey found the exact opposite. The users who delegate the most entire tasks to AI, the ones putting their workflows on full automation, are actually the most optimistic about their job security and their future pay.
While the most skeptical people in the survey are the veteran workers, the folks with 15 or more years of experience.
Yeah, they claim AI completely lacks their tacit situational judgment. They believe their contextual awareness, the nuances of office politics and unwritten rules, is just something a machine can't replicate.
And I see this dynamic playing out everywhere right now in the corporate world.
Leaders are desperately trying to navigate this exact human-AI shift. Like Jason Manship's podcast, Authentic and Agentic, is entirely dedicated to helping leaders deal with this exact intersection, figuring out how to stay human while dealing with both the hyper-optimistic delegators and the deeply skeptical veterans.
It's a huge management challenge.
It is. But if I look at those heavy delegators, the ones who are the most optimistic, I keep thinking about this analogy, is this moment basically the early days of cloud computing, like when companies just spun up servers for fun until the AWS bill gave the CFO a heart attack?
That is exactly what's happening.
And if those heavy delegators are the most optimistic, does that mean they've essentially promoted themselves to being the managers of their AI rather than its competitors?
That is exactly the psychological shift happening.
Yeah.
They don't see themselves as individual contributors anymore. They see themselves as resource allocators. The AI is a team of interns, and they are the director.
Which completely explains why their leverage just went through the roof and why they're so optimistic. We're going to take a quick breather right here, and when we come back, we're diving into the wild world of physical silicon and corporate espionage. 10-second pause. All right, so all of this delegation brings us right back to the central crisis we were talking about.
Right, the cost crunch.
Users are demanding cheaper AI to do more of their work, but the compute costs to fulfill those demands are absolutely terrifying the CFOs. So if the software is this incredibly expensive to run, how do you fix the margins?
You have to own the physical hardware.
Exactly. And that realization has forced the leading AI labs to admit that pure software models just aren't a big enough moat anymore.
Software weights are ultimately just a giant file of numbers.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing, defending a file of numbers is proving to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, to survive, these labs are now fighting to control the physical hardware layer while simultaneously trying to fend off rivals who are literally stealing their intelligence.
So let's unpack the hardware pivot first, because OpenAI is making a massive, unprecedented move into physical silicon.
Yeah, they've partnered with Broadcom to unveil Jalapeño, which is OpenAI's first custom inference chip. And what really stands out here is the speed.
The timeline is insane.
They took this chip from initial design to tape out, meaning the final design was sent to the factory for manufacturing in a record 9 months.
In the semiconductor world, 9 months is light speed. Developing a custom chip usually takes years. But the distinction you made earlier is critical here. Jalapeño isn't designed to train AI. It's designed specifically for inference.
Let's clarify that difference for everyone because it really explains the whole financial bottleneck. Training a massive AI model is like building a massive factory. You do it once, it takes months, and it costs hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, but inference is what happens after the factory is built.
Exactly. Inference is the act of the AI actually answering your prompt about a recipe or a sleep routine.
And inference happens billions of times a day, every single day. Right now, the industry relies heavily on Nvidia chips for everything.
But Nvidia's chips are massive, power-hungry powerhouses. They're built for the heavy lifting of training.
Using them for everyday inference is literally like using a massive freight train to deliver a single pizza.
That's a great way to put it. So Jalapeño is essentially OpenAI building a fleet of highly efficient mopeds.
Exactly. The goal is incredibly low operating costs and high performance per watt. Because right now, Nvidia's profit margins are basically OpenAI's biggest operating expense.
So by owning the chip architecture, OpenAI can optimize the entire stack. But here's the thing. If building physical silicon like Jalapeño takes 9 months to a year just to manufacture, what do you do in the meantime?
Well, if you're a competitor lagging behind the frontier models, you can't wait a year for new hardware.
No, you have to steal the software right now, which explains this massive wave of corporate espionage we are seeing.
The Alibaba situation.
Yes. TechCrunch and Tom's Hardware recently reported on a situation where Anthropic actually took a complaint straight to the White House regarding what we're calling the Great Alibaba Heist.
You have a textbook case of modern corporate espionage.
Break it down for us. What exactly happened?
So according to Anthropic, between April and June of 2026, operators tied to Alibaba allegedly used 25,000 fake accounts to run nearly 28.8 million queries through Claude, which is Anthropic's flagship model.
28 million queries. I mean, I can't imagine they need 28 million variations of a sleep routine. If they're pumping that much data through Claude using fake accounts, they aren't using it as a chatbot. They're using it as an automated factory line. What exactly are they building?
They were performing a technique called distillation.
Distillation. Okay, what is that?
Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars and years of trial and error to figure out how to make their own model smart, they just used Claude. They fed Claude incredibly complex scenarios to test its agentic reasoning, its software engineering capabilities, its ability to handle long-term tasks.
And then they just took the answers.
Yes. Yeah. They took Claude's perfect outputs and used those answers as the textbook to train their own smaller model, Quinn.
Wow. Okay, so distillation is basically like paying for a Michelin star meal, secretly taking it back to a lab, and running it through a mass spectrometer to reverse engineer the exact chemical recipe so you can sell it as your own drive-through.
That is a perfect analogy. But imagine that your drive-through also skips all the health and safety inspections.
Great.
That is the real danger Anthropic warned the White House about. When you clone a model through distillation, the cloned model inherits the raw intelligence of the original, but it completely bypasses the months of safety guardrails and ethical alignment that were painstakingly built into the original recipe.
And this is exactly why national security is becoming so deeply intertwined with these frontier models. The U.S. government is realizing they have to get very hands-on.
They're stepping in a big way.
Yeah. So the Trump administration recently reversed a ban and released Anthropic's Mythos 5 model. This is their most powerful, specialized cybersecurity model, and they released it to over 100 vetted U.S. agencies and companies.
But they held back the general version.
Right. The general use version of that exact same intelligence, called Fable 5, remains completely offline due to concerns over its guardrails. And just to be clear, we are just impartially reporting the facts as they are stated in the briefs here, not taking any political side.
Of course. But it just shows you how tightly controlled the top tier of this technology has become.
It really does. But I have to ask, if a competitor can just scrape your $100 million model with a bunch of fake email addresses and distill the intelligence, is the software moat in AI basically just an illusion?
Honestly, yes. The pure software moat is incredibly fragile. Software alone is just too leaky to be a permanent defense.
Which brings us right back to hardware.
Exactly. That is why OpenAI has to build the physical Jalapeño chip and why everyone is racing to build custom data centers. You can steal software weights with fake accounts, but you can't illegally download a physical data center.
That makes perfect sense. We're going to pause right here for one more quick break, and then we'll get into the talent wars and the VIP model rollouts. 10-second pause.
Okay, we are back. So if the software mode is fragile and the custom chips take years to deploy at scale, how do these labs stay ahead right now?
Well, they hoard the absolute best human talent, and they completely change how they release next-generation models to the world.
The talent wars are definitely escalating, but they are pointing in a very specific direction. TechCrunch reported that Nobel laureate John Jumper, the co-creator of AlphaFold, just left Google DeepMind after 9 years to join Anthropic.
Winning a Nobel Prize for predicting the 3D structure of proteins is about as high level as human intelligence gets.
So why does an AI lab want a structural biologist so badly? because it signals a massive pivot toward AI for science. The leading labs have realized that generating better marketing copy or writing faster emails is just a race to the bottom.
The margins are just too thin there.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The next frontier of massive defensible value is in biology-focused agents, wet labs, and actual scientific discovery. They need the smartest humans in the world, the ones who deeply understand the scientific method, to guide the AI that will accelerate it.
And as the models get more capable at these incredibly complex tasks, the way they are being rolled out is shifting dramatically. It's not a public free-for-all anymore. We are seeing major delays and heavily restricted access.
Right, like Google delaying Gemini.
Yeah, Google delayed its highly anticipated Gemini 3.5 Pro to July 2026 because they are reportedly struggling to refine its performance on complex long-horizon tasks.
It just proves that pushing the frontier of intelligence is getting exponentially harder. You can no longer just throw $1 billion of compute at a problem and guarantee a clean model will pop out on a set deadline.
And look at how OpenAI is handling their next leap. They are currently previewing GPT-5.6, but it is entirely behind a velvet rope.
It wasn't a public launch at all.
No. It was shown exclusively to the U.S. government and about 20 vetted organizations first, and they are segmenting it into very specific tiers now.
Right. Sol, Terra, and Luna.
Exactly. Sol is the strongest model, heavily focused on biology and cybersecurity. Terra is the everyday model that runs twice as cheap as the previous generation. And then Luna is the absolute fastest and cheapest tier.
But stepping back, it feels like AI releases have morphed from these loud, flashy, Steve Jobs-style tech keynotes into highly classified defense contractor briefings behind closed doors.
They absolutely have. The old Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things simply doesn't apply when the things you might break are critical infrastructure or national security protocols.
The stakes are just too high.
Right. So the VIP rollout strategy allows them to test the waters with users they trust while figuring out how to control access to the most dangerous capabilities. Okay, we've covered a lot of massive high-altitude shifts today. Trillion-dollar custom chips, geopolitical distillation heists, VIP models locked behind closed doors. But here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener.
Because none of that matters if you can't actually use it.
Exactly. If you are trying to actually use this stuff in your business, none of that high-level drama matters if the AI can't even read your company's messy paperwork.
This is the ultimate reality check of the industry. The real heroes of this entire shift toward efficiency aren't just the frontier models themselves.
It's the tooling layer.
Yes, the tools that translate human mess into clean, AI-ready data.
Because most corporate AI workflows break at step one. You take a massive PDF full of financial tables, split sections, headers, scan charts, and you feed it to an AI. But generic text extractors just flatten that complex document into a single, garbled, unreadable string of text.
The AI gets confused, it hallucinates, and the workflow just fails.
Enter LlamaParse, built by the Llama Index team, which is acting as the ultimate bridge to solve this.
LlamaParse is brilliant because it's designed specifically for this exact bottleneck. It can process over 130 different file types with a 99% accuracy rate on complex tables.
And the key technological leap here is that it is layout aware, meaning the parser actually understands that a header is a header, a footer is a footer, and a chart isn't just a random string of numbers floating in space.
Right. It takes all that messy visual documentation and turns it into clean Markdown or JSON.
And for those who aren't developers, think of Markdown and JSON as the universal, highly structured native languages that AI actually reads and understands, rather than the visual mess of a PDF.
And tying this right back to the corporate cost crunch we discussed at the beginning, LlamaParse uses an incredibly smart auto mode.
Oh, I love this feature.
It analyzes each individual page of a document and routes it to the cheapest tier of parsing that will successfully get the job done. That feature alone can save companies up to 80% in processing costs because you aren't using your most expensive compute to read a blank title page.
The Llama Index documentation gives a great real-world example of why this layout awareness is so critical. Imagine an underwriting team at a bank. They are using AI to read applicant brokerage statements to approve loans. If a generic parser flattens a PDF table and accidentally transposes a single digit from a debts column into an assets column, that silently becomes a terrible loan decision.
The AI doesn't know it misread the table, It just confidently makes a bad financial choice based on bad data.
But LlamaParse fixes the structural data before the AI ever even sees it. So if we're building these massive trillion-dollar AI brains, LlamaParse is essentially the optic nerve. Without it, the brain is just looking at a blurry mess.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. And this focus on maximizing efficiency at the user level brings us to a fascinating concept that ties this entire deep dive together.
Metaprompting.
Yes. We just talked about how OpenAI has these incredibly smart, expensive models like Sol and cheaper, faster models like Luna or open-weight models like DeepSeek. The question for businesses is, how do you get the intelligence of the expensive model without paying the massive inference costs?
And the answer is our prompt of the week. You do it by using the expensive model to manage the cheap model. Metaprompting is where you use an expensive, highly capable model like Sol to write the system prompt and instructions for a cheaper model. Is that basically it?
That's exactly it. The underlying insight here is that prompt quality and raw capability are two entirely different things. A strong frontier model knows the exact instructions, the specific constraints, and the weird edge cases to feed a smaller model to make it perform beautifully on a specific task.
So you only pay the high price once. You let the expensive model write the ultimate foolproof set of instructions, and then you deploy the cheap model in production to run that prompt at scale millions of times for pennies.
It is the ultimate hack.
It's the ultimate hack for the token maxing hangover. You are essentially using the telemetry of a Ferrari to teach a Honda Civic how to drive.
It really is the ultimate efficiency play. You extract the vast intelligence of the frontier model, and you bake it directly into the instructions for the commodity model.
Which honestly sounds exactly like the distillation process the hackers use in the Alibaba heist. Just, a legal user-level version of it that doesn't violate the terms of service.
Basically, yes.
Well, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's recap what this all means for you. The era of reckless, blank-check AI spending is firmly over.
We have fully entered the era of infrastructure and execution.
The leading companies are focused on owning the physical silicon layer with chips like Jalapeño. They are fiercely guarding their intelligence by fighting off distillation heists. And at the user level, everything is about hyper-efficient execution, using layout-aware tools like LlamaParse and techniques like metaprompting to get highly reliable results without bankrupting the company.
The focus is entirely on practical, cost-effective reality now.
We started this deep dive by talking about how weightless software is now feeling the incredibly heavy drag of the physical world. But I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on, something that flips this whole dynamic on its head.
I'm intrigued.
Well, we've talked today about how the best, most capable AIs are now being used to train, prompt, route, and manage the cheaper AIs. And we've seen how heavy human delegators are acting more as resource managers rather than individual workers.
Right, the delegation paradox.
Exactly. If we are currently building ecosystems where the frontier models write the instructions, route the complex tasks, and oversee the output of the cheaper commodity models, well, how long until humans are entirely removed from the management layer of artificial intelligence?
Oh, wow.
What happens to the modern workplace when the AI stops being the eager intern you have to constantly manage and seamlessly becomes its own middle management?
That is the defining question of the next decade. When the software is fully capable of managing the software, the human role in the economy changes entirely.
And maybe that's the moment when software finally becomes weightless again. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the shifting architecture of AI. Keep questioning the infrastructure around you, and we'll see you next time.